Okay, thank you everyone for joining. We are going to kick off. So hello everyone, my name is Daisy James. So for those of you who don't know me, I am the course advisor for our online and blended MA in Educational Leadership in Practice here at the University of Manchester. So today's session, we're going to talk to you a little bit about what you can expect should you choose to study on the course. So I'm joined by our course director, Dr. Alex Gardner-McTaggart. So he's joining me today and he's going to give you an insight into, like I said, what you can expect whilst you study here in Manchester and on the online part-time blended MA in Educational Leadership in Practice. So we're going to go through a few introductions. Some of you have hopefully had correspondence from me in the past. For those of you who don't know me, obviously I am the course advisor for this course here at the University of Manchester. So here I am, here's a photo of me. I've got over 4 years of experience within student recruitment and the higher education space. So before I moved to Manchester in February this year, I worked down in London for an amazing art auction house where I looked after a few master's courses in terms of art history and art law and business. So I have a wealth of knowledge in kind of student recruitment and higher education. And this particular course, so the MA in Educational Leadership in Practice, which all of you on today's call have expressed an interest in, falls within my portfolio here at the university. So I manage this course, but also a variety of other online and blended learning courses in the form of CPD courses, postgraduate certificates, and master's degrees. So I'm responsible, my main responsibility is delivering webinars such as this one, but also other webinars for different courses, but kind of focusing more on well-being and things like that. Another aspect of my role is conducting individual consultations via Zoom with prospective students like yourselves. So the consultations with students that I've had in the past, and that's something I really enjoy doing. It's a chance for me to get to know you as a potential student, but also understand kind of your goals and motivations in order to help you make that really informed decision about your next academic career move. So my main role really is to support you and guide you at every stage of your application journey. My contact details are going to be posted at the end of this webinar. So please do get in touch with me if you want to kind of book in that individual consultation. I'd be more than happy to support you. Before I hand you over to Alex, a few housekeeping rules. If you could remain muted, that would be great. It will avoid distraction when we're kind of talking to you today. In terms of questions, please do submit your questions, any questions that you have in the chat box. I'll be monitoring that when Alex is kind of talking, and we'll aim to cover them towards the end of today's webinar. So again, thank you for joining. I'm going to hand you over to Alex, who's going to introduce himself and talk through kind of the course in a little bit more detail. So Alex, over to you.
Thank you very much, Daisy. So hi, my name's Alex, and I'm the course or the program director for this Masters in Educational Leadership in Practice. Now, so a little bit about me, so you can see there. I've worked internationally mostly for the last more years than I care to mention, actually, since about 1995. Before I came to Manchester, I was a senior lecturer in leadership and negotiation in the Department of Communication and Applied Behavioural Sciences for the Ministry of Defence at the Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst. And as a civil servant there, I worked very strongly on developing leadership skills within particularly the British Army. But my actual field is international education and education more broadly, and leadership there. And so I have been responsible for developing this course, and I also run this course along with a group of colleagues at the university who you may well know from their names. For example, Professor Helen Gunther, Dr. Steve Courtney, Dr. Stephen Rayner, Dr. Paul Armstrong, Dr. B. Hughes, and several more who are our main contributors to this course here. So that's about me, really, and about us academics on the course. So you might be asking yourself, is this MA Educational Leadership in Practice Master's degree the right course for you? Well, there'll be lots of factors, obviously, that influence your decision as to whether you want to do a master's degree or not, and what kind of master's degree you want to do. So let's go through then what it says here about what how it might be suitable for you. So this would typically be for someone who's already working in education or is coming to the end of a course of education, who wants to, as it says, enhance your skills in leadership within schools, but also within universities, nurseries, colleges, so all manner of educational institutions. I think the core thing to understand about educational leadership is that whilst leadership is leadership to some people, leadership is very nuanced and very, very context-based. So understanding leadership in one context, say healthcare or corporate finance, is going to be very, very different to understanding leadership in education, simply because the nature of the job is different, the subject matter is different, the people are different, the origin and the outlook of what you're doing is different. So what this course does is it offers a balance between a theoretical and an empirical knowledge base, but also a practical application. So it allows you as a practitioner to consistently and regularly reflect upon your practice and what you do and what you're good at and where you need to improve, and then look at the theory that's gone before and also the research that's been done, and find how to develop yourself and increase your capacity through doing that with the best that's known to social science, in effect, really. So it allows you to apply that knowledge directly to your workplace. So it's not one of those, we often hear complaints, don't we, from some master's degrees that they're very dry or that they're very theoretical. And for sure, this master's degree deals with theory. So there are aspects of it that are very theoretical, but that theory is levied in such a way to talk directly to your practice. And I think that's a particular strength of this master's degree. Also comes out of the fact that it's a new master's degree. Many master's degrees out there have been kicking about for 20 or 30 years, and they get updated occasionally. And this one isn't like that. This one has been put together by a world-leading team over the last 2 years to reflect what the world is now, and not what the world was 30 years ago. So I think that's a big strength of this master's degree. In terms of the rollout and the application, it's a 2-year blended learning course. So we do also offer a 1-year full-time course at Manchester, but we found that, especially for our practitioners, that's hugely impractical. No one can really take a year out of work and just go and say, I'm going to go and be a student for a year and live in Manchester. So that's why we have developed this blended learning course. And as much as we can, we've used all the knowledge that we have at Manchester to develop the most appropriate and the most up-to-date and the most applicable course by using aspects of face-to-face contact. And that comes in the form of our 4 conferences that we give throughout the 2 years. And those conferences are where you are then invited for 3 days to come and interact with Manchester academics, with each other. And then the other side of that is the online platform that we have, which has been developed very carefully to be helpful to you in terms of offering a platform that's easy to use, that's nice to look at, that has good lectures and videos that you can watch that have been crafted especially for this course, but then also with very interesting readings, quite challenging readings sometimes, with discussion inputs. You also have a portfolio that you put together, a learning portfolio, which is in a separate piece of software that's linked through the website, which then is, it's kind of it's something that you can take with you even after the master's degree, like a documentation of your learning as you've been going through. And so you get to meet, some of the world leading academics in the field of educational leadership. And I think that's a great thing, because that doesn't always happen. You don't often get to meet these people or to interact with them. And so here you do. And I think that's also a great strength of it. So yeah, great. Okay, so I'm going to talk you through now what the different units are in the degree. So the degree is made up of 5 compulsory units, 1 optional unit, which can also be APL, which is accreditation for prior learning. And then the final part is a research suite and a sort of final project. Well, the first unit is called Models of Educational Leadership. And this starts right off the bat, looking at where are we in the field, what do we know theoretically about leadership in education. And so leadership models are what's often used when we talk theoretically about educational leadership. And you've probably heard these terms before, things like transformational leadership, distributed leadership, participative leadership, situated leadership. Any number of different models of leadership are out there. And so we have a very rigorous look at those models in this unit, and then we pick them apart and we look at how well they actually work, and then we ask you to reflect upon your practice too. How have you used them, or how do you see others using them, or can you see leadership as occurring through these models? And ideally, the intent here is for us to ask you to start thinking beyond models of leadership in order to start doing what this master's degree aims to do, which is to develop you, and to develop you beyond models of leadership, to develop the type of leadership that will gel with you as an individual. Because we take the view at Manchester that leadership is a process, an eternally ongoing process, always learning. You never stop learning in leadership, but it's also highly individual. It's very unique. And so models can only be of limited use to someone who's actually developing themselves as a leader and not developing a model to be a leader, if you see what I mean. So that's the first unit, Models of Educational Leadership. Then we go over into engaging with educational leadership research. So that unit then starts to get quite theoretical. It looks there at knowledge. It looks at how is knowledge generated? Who makes up the knowledge? How is knowledge valid? How is knowledge in educational leadership valid, and who says so? And is it important or is it unimportant? So what this unit also does is it starts preparing you for looking at knowledge in a deeper way, and it also prepares you for your final assessment. So that's, I think, a very helpful spiral in the curriculum here, which begins in this unit. And you'll be looking there at some of the theorists that we like to draw upon. So the School of Environment, Education and Development, which you would be a part of if you were to take this master's degree, is world renowned for its work in the critical domain, in the intellectual domain, in its world leading research. And so some of the theorists that we'd be looking at there would be people like, for example, Pierre Bourdieu. In sociology or in philosophy, we'd be looking at people like Habermas or Baudrillard or Foucault, for example. So this is then a taster of theoretical aspects of knowledge that are then helpful to you in developing your intellectual capacity and, growing your leadership potential to be a bigger and more complete and more comprehensive leader. I have to mention there probably that, the many courses will develop you as a manager, right? So what's a manager? A manager is someone who gets told, do this. And the manager will then have a few people who they can then say, no, I want you to do this, and this is how I want you to do it. Leadership's different. Leadership is about being able to know what to do and where to go and what direction to take. And that you cannot train in a weekend. You can't train by doing a bunch of exercises. That requires intellectual development. That requires expanding the intellectualism within one's own mind. And so I think this unit's very helpful here in beginning that process of thinking about the bigger picture, thinking about where power lies, how to speak back to power as well, which is quite important. Thank you, Daisy. So going on to Unit 3, we have the Leading Educational Change and Development. That's an interesting unit because it looks there at how change happens in schools and universities and nurseries. And when we think about leading educational change, we often take a managerial view of it and we go, oh, this is what I've been told to do, and this is what I have to do. And we think often quite in a very pragmatic or utilitarian way about how to do it. But in a school, this is very different, as it is in a university or nursery, because change affects people in different ways. And change is also closely connected to ideas of power and agency. So if we're, for example, if we're thinking about improving efficiency and effectiveness in a school and getting better grades at the end of the year, and we're going to introduce a raft of measures in order to push this particular way of being or thinking, this could have severe and life-changing repercussions for children or young people who might not fit the norm or what we expect to be the norm, or people who require extra support, or people who think differently about the world and act differently. And so leading educational change and development is actually a much more involved process than we think it is at first sight. And so this unit here draws upon several of our notable academics, for example, Professor Mel Ainsborough, who you might know at Manchester, and their work in educational change. And it looks here at how we as compassionate, thoughtful, and intellectual educational leaders can lead change and at the same time make that a process that benefits everybody and that helps all children to reach their goals, and not just the few who happen to be very well supported at home and have an easier time of it. Then the fourth unit is educational leadership policy. Well, for anybody doing ed leadership, this is a central one to do. You don't always see it in all master's degrees, unfortunately. We're very lucky that we have Professor Helen Gunter, who's a key member on our team as well on this master's degree. She is Professor of Education Policy. Professor Gunter is very well known worldwide for her work in policy, and if you may have picked up her book, Leaders and Leadership in Education. That was one of the first books I picked up on ed leadership many, many moons ago. This unit looks at policy and how policy that comes usually from government, but it can, in private institutions, for example, it can come from elsewhere. How policy is formed and how it impacts educational leaders and leadership, and then how it impacts children and young people and learners. It looks at the role of the leader in the kind of in-between space between the organization and the policy level. And it looks again at power. So as you can imagine, policy, the root, the stem of that word there is the pol. So the politic, that's about power, and that's about direction. And so if you've ever, I don't know if you've ever engaged with the work of Pasi Sahlberg before, but he's got a great blog where he talks about the global education reform movement, GERM, so GERM, which is a great acronym. That's probably worthwhile looking at, actually, if there's something you want to look at in the meantime. Looking at how our education systems in the last 20, 30 years have become very, very, focused upon things like effectiveness and efficiency. How the rule of numbers has taken over, strongly driven, for example, by PISA and the PISA tests, because PISA measures schools and nations by numeracy and literacy. So what does that do at the policy level at government? Government says, well, then we need to get the best scores on the PISA test. But PISA doesn't measure athletics, sports, drama, singing, arts, art, philosophy, history, you name it. It just measures literacy and numeracy. So how does that affect how schools are run in the day-to-day? And how does that affect how teachers experience teaching and learning? And how does that affect how leaders then levy their influence within schools? And the question then is, how well equipped are you as an educational leader to still hold your course and still provide the depth and breadth of education that you would wish your students to have, and for your teachers to be empowered to provide, right? So policy is a hugely interesting topic there. Okay, let's move on to the next unit. So that's educational leadership as a social practice. So that's semester 3. That's the last of your set units to do. This is again a central point of our research and what we've done at Manchester. So this is about looking at how leadership in schools is not really it's not really a top-down hierarchical process, is it? I mean, you're not working in a factory where you've got, one bloke who went to Harvard and he got an MBA and he's the boss. And then you've got 200 workers who all left school age 16 and they're all the workers, right? So that's the industrial model. Well, education isn't like that. We've all got degrees. We all went to university. We're all clever. We're all educated. We're all knowledge workers, right? And we all rely upon each other because we're all specialized in different ways. And so understanding that that is the workforce that you have, and that collegiality is incredibly important, as is professionalism, and being able to work with those ideas as an educational leader, and understand that educational leadership is, as the title says, a social practice, right? It's not a hierarchical top-down process. And so that means that the skills that are required very much in this field are the skills of developing empathy, developing trust amongst people. And the way you do that is by being authentic and genuine and being a real person. And that's why, to go back to the very first unit that I was talking about, that's why this master's degree aims to develop you as the person that you are, to be a leader, right? Not to make you into some kind of externalized idea of a leader that a model says that you should be, because then you're not really authentic. You've got to be you. And if you're you and you manage to go to work every day and come back from work every day and feel like, yeah, I was me all day long, right? And yet you were a leader, right? That's where you want to be. And that's what that unit broaches a lot. However, that is throughout the whole master's degree anyway. So then we get to unit 6, right? Which is the, you can take this as an accreditation for prior learning. So if you've done postgraduate studies before and you've gained enough points, you can then apply through the university to have this unit here as a block of space where you don't have to actually do a unit. Or you can take one of our optional units, which of course I would recommend. But then I would recommend that because I think they're brilliant. So digital media and information literacy, that's run by Dr. Drew Whitworth, who is a world leader in the field of digital media. Then we've got leading learning, and then we've got international school leadership. So that's a unit that I'm developing at this very moment. That's of great interest to everybody who's working in international schools, of which we have quite a few students on this master's degree. The master's degree suits or seems to suit them very well, the blended aspect of it and the flexibility of it. That's an interesting unit because there's not much known about leadership in international schools, and that happens to be my specialist area as well. And very interesting, you know, big market, growing immensely. I mean, now they have nearly 500,000 teachers in international schools. That's more than in the entire country of England. And nobody really thinks about that much, how those schools get led. So that's a fascinating unit, I think, but then I would. Right, moving on. Okay, so in the last semester then, rather than having a big dissertation block, which is what many masters do, in fact, that's what I think most of them do, we've split this up a little bit more. So you have a research skills suite where you get 3 small little units on conducting strong research. And then you have the research project at the end, which is kind of half the size of a dissertation or a thesis that you typically have in a master's. And this is where you get to focus upon producing your own work. And you're mentored through the process as well. And you get to research an element of your own practice of work or something that you are interested within your own work. So all in all, as you can see, the way the master's degree is structured, there is an absolute focus on educational leadership throughout. It's not the case that you have 1/3 of the master's degree is general education, 1/3 is a dissertation, and only 1/3 is management and leadership in education, which is the typical model of a master's degree you'll find all over the world. This one has ed leadership in its DNA all the way through it, from beginning to end, and it's specifically crafted to engage ambitious educational leaders who are looking into the 21st century and looking at the future and saying, this is where I'm going, this is where I need to go, and this is where the world's going at the moment. So it's very up to date and very, I think, timely addition to all the master's degrees that are out there, and the knowledge within it is particularly relevant. So yeah, we talked a little bit about this at the beginning. So we have face-to-face workshops, which are held twice a year. So that means there are 4 all in all. There are those 6 20-credit modules that I just walked you through just now. So you can work while you study. We estimate there's around 15 hours of study per week. Some people take more time. Some people may be able to get away with less. But I think that's a good rule of thumb. But that's what you should be expecting from a good master's degree, is that you should be spending that much time. Don't forget too that when you do engage at this level, at postgraduate level, there will be readings that you have to do that will take time, and you need to take time for them, because you need to, especially at the very beginning, a lot of the terms that you'll come up against and a lot of the structures and ways of writing might be difficult to access. So my personal tip would be, especially at the beginning, factor in a little bit more time. Don't be too hard on yourself at the beginning, because I think as knowledge workers, teachers, ed leaders that we all are, we tend to assume that this is what we're naturally good at, because that's the area that we work in. And we forget very often that while we do work in that area, we do it for other people all the time. We don't do it for us. So this really is a space to step back and focus upon you again, and focus upon your learning and your skills and your capacity, and growing all of that and building it. And that can be tough at the beginning, but I am here to support you, as are all the other academics and our fantastic student support as well. There are no exams, so if you don't like exams, then that would be good. We have practical and reflective assessment. So at the end of every unit, you'll have a 4,000 word assessment, right? And that is then marked and then moderated, so double marked. And that's how you then get your grade as you go through a master's degree, and then that accumulates, and then at the end you have your big sort of projects as well. It's a 2-year part-time course, and it is flexible to fit around you. So entry requirements. So typically we ask for a 2-1 honours degree, so an upper second class honours or first class honours, or the international equivalent. And don't worry, we have a team of experts who know exactly how to work out what equivalencies are. We'd ideally also like you to have an initial qualification in teaching, or at least 2 years professional experience in public or private education. If English is not your native language, then we would ask for an IELTS score of 6.5. This is the typical, that's what's typically asked. Just before Daisy comes on, I'll also say that all of those requirements that I just read to you right there, if you don't feel that you come up to all of them precisely, and you still are really, really keen on the course, and you think, for example, you've got a very strong professional orientation and vocation, and you think this is the right course for you, don't let that stop you from applying. Because, you know, if push comes to shove, then I also personally review quite a lot of applications. And if I find that the person's other qualifications in some way make up for something that's lacking somewhere, then we can make a case that somebody can still join. Right, I think that's all from me now, or for the moment. I'll hand over to Daisy.
Thanks, Alex. Good timing. And guys on the call, I hope you found it insightful, and that gave you kind of an insight into what you can expect in terms of this course. Obviously, you've heard from Alex. These are my contact details. So I am your dedicated course advisor. One thing I am doing for kind of prospective students like yourself is reviewing your CV or kind of profile. So if you would like to submit your CV for an initial review before you kind of go ahead and complete your entire application, please do email me that, and my email address is here. So just to read it out, it's studyonline@manchester.ac.uk. So like I said before, my role is to really support you at the early stages of the decision-making process. When I speak to students on a daily basis, everyone's an individual, so circumstances are different. Career goals, aspirations, and motivations vary. So please do get in touch with me. We can have kind of an honest conversation around what this course is for you, what it will mean for you, and things like that. So we've had some questions come through, so thank you so much for those of you who asked some questions. So I want to kick off with a question in terms of the support. So what support do you have as a student if you join us on the course? So you've obviously got me at the very beginning and the initial stages of your journey and decision-making process. I kind of hand the baton over to a study advisor. So they're a little bit like me, but they're on hand whilst you're studying on the course. So they will be able to provide you with non-academic support. So at the very beginning of the course, they will induct you. So to help you feel comfortable and confident using that virtual learning environment that you'll be using on a daily basis throughout your studies. You'll obviously be taught by fantastic academics who are on hand to support you as well. You'll have kind of an academic tutor, and you'll have access to the wellbeing support that we have as a university. So you are studying online, you're an online learner, but you receive the same level of support that our on-campus students do. And I think that's really important for you to know and understand as a prospective student. So I've got a few questions in the chat box. So I've got a question about, bear with me one second. Can the course be fully taught online for the whole 2 years? So it's an online and blended course. And as Alex mentioned previously, we have the blended element in there in order to help you as an individual network, build that network so you can grow both professionally and personally. We think that they are incredibly important in terms of your development as a student. So the course is majority taught online, but you've got the blended element. So twice a year you will come onto campus. So whichever location you choose to study at, you will be invited to kind of attend the conferences there. And on that point, we have 3 locations where this course is kind of running and going to be rolled out. So we've obviously got Manchester, which I look after. I'm based in Manchester here at the moment. We've got our Dubai centre as well. So should you've got any questions about kind of the individual international centres, please do let me know. I can direct you to the correct person to help you. And we're really excited. We're rolling this course out in Shanghai. So I can see a few of my Shanghai colleagues on today's call. So hi, everyone. So we're really excited. It's a growing course. It's a very attractive course, and it's becoming incredibly popular with kind of students who I'm talking to. They're really excited to join. So on that, the conferences you will attend at the location that you select to study. So I've got a few more, and I have one for you, Alex. Just bear with me 1 second. Are there many essays to write during kind of the semesters other than the project at the end of the course?
Yes, we have 5 units, and at the end of every unit, you write typically a 3,000 word, let's call it an essay. They vary. Sometimes they're reports, sometimes they're literature reviews, but let's call it an essay. So a 3,000 word piece of academic writing, and then typically a 1,000 word reflection. All of this is scaffolded for you in such a way that you don't have to go off and reinvent how to write a reflection. We show you how, and we give you a guideline, of course, offering you the opportunity to do it in your way as well if you want. So you'll have 5 of those in total, like a 4,000 word assignment, 1,000 word reflection, 3,000 word essay, and then at the end you have your final project.
Brilliant, thanks, Alex. And in terms of the next question, another one for you, if you don't mind. So if this student kind of studies on this course, what added value will they bring to kind of employers during and after the course? So can you give a bit of an insight into that, please?
Well, it's funny you should ask that question, because the current cohort that we have, since they started the course in February, 2 of them have been promoted from teacher to vice principal in that time. So I know for a fact that with one of them, it was due to them taking the course, and with another one, being on the course has empowered them enormously to feel stronger about taking on the responsibilities. It's one thing to get the job, it's another thing to do it, right? So just getting through the job interview and being able to say, oh, look at me, aren't I great, and get into the place, that's one thing. But this is where a lot of leadership then falls down, because then you're put in a position of incredible responsibility, and you need the tools in order to be able to work in very complex social environments and still hold your cool and still be able to keep things together and still keep things positive and moving on. And so that's exactly what this course does while you're on it, is it starts engaging you, first of all, with you. What are you good at? How can you see yourself growing and developing? And then as you finish the course and move out from the course, you then leave with obviously a university degree at master's level from one of the very few world-leading universities in educational leadership. I think alone that is incredibly empowering, if not for other people who, and especially recruiters and human resource managers, who will look at that and say, wow, that's pretty special. But just for you, just knowing that you've been able to get through that course and that you've been able to grow in that particular way. And so I think for anybody, ask anybody who's done a master's degree in education, no matter which one, they are all incredibly empowering for you towards your career. This one in particular is specially crafted to empower you to take on leadership roles. And so I think that's the answer really, is that yes, you will find this strongly empowering, probably from day one.
Great, thank you, Alex. And just on the kind of topic of the university and where it's ranked, you're absolutely right. We, as an institution, we are ranked incredibly highly, not just here in the UK, but across the globe. So some statistics to kind of hopefully not bore you with, but we're ranked 6th best university in the UK and 27th in the world. So when you are considering kind of further study, it's really important to bear those rankings in mind. We pride ourselves on kind of the fantastic academics that we have as part of the institution, but also the content and research that we produce. So I think it's super important to bear that in mind. So I've got a few more questions, Alex, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
Is this course relevant to the higher education sector?
Absolutely. We've made the course to be able to speak to people from higher education through to secondary, through to primary, and through to kindergarten and nursery as well, including as well further education. We've also designed it in such a way that if you work, for example, for a non-governmental organisation strongly involved in education, it has exactly the same relevancy for you as well. So absolutely, yes.
Brilliant, thanks, Alex. And we've got a question about if a student has got a master's degree from a UK university or a bachelor's degree from a UK university, will the English language requirements, will they be exempt? And the answer is yes, if you can provide the documents that shows and demonstrates to us that you've completed a degree in English, you'll be exempt from completing an English language competency exam. I've got a question about kind of when is the next intake. So I am recruiting for September 2020. Just to let you all know, the deadline for applications will be closing recruitment on the 24th of August. So you've got a little bit of time, but the course is becoming very popular. So I would recommend submitting an application sooner rather than later. Look, I know you need to make kind of decisions quite quickly with kind of deciding your next plan and your next couple of years. So then please contact me. I know your circumstances will be different from one another. So let's have a bit of a chat before you kind of submit your application. Send me your profile, send me your CV for me to have an initial kind of review, and I'm happy to do that. So we've got a September intake for Manchester and Dubai, and also a February intake. So we'll be recruiting for February 2021 once this recruitment window kind of closes. And obviously we're launching in Shanghai in February as well. So some dates to bear in mind. And what I'll do after today's session is send you this recording of today's webinar for you to listen back to in your own time. And also some things that we've covered. So links to kind of where you can find the university rankings, links to kind of the support that will be available to you as a prospective student should you choose to join us, and everything like that. So I think we are kind of running a little bit over time. So if you do have further questions, here's my email. Drop me an email and we can have a bit of a chat. Alex, thank you so much as always for your time. I hope you've all found today's call and webinar insightful, and it's given you a bit of an indication as to what you can expect on the master's degree here at the university. I hope you all stay safe and well, and I look forward to hopefully receiving some email from you and hopefully an application from you soon.
Hold on, before you go, I just saw one there from William Gibbs.
Oh.
William Gibbs is asking, is this a good route to a doctorate in education? Absolutely. This is exactly the kind of master's degree you would need to do in order to then be considered for a PhD or for an EdD in education after that. And just to add also to what Daisy said about applications, this is a special course, right? We only take 20 people a year, and we do that for reasons of quality. The course is filling up, and it's filling up quicker this time than it did last time. So if you're interested, no strings attached, get in touch with Daisy, send something over right now, then we can have a look at things and we can get the ball rolling. Because like I said, it's filling up quickly this year. And if you want to start getting things done now, you probably won't have to wait until February to the next intake. So that would be my tip.
Thanks so much, Alex. And again, thank you for your time today. Lovely to see you all on today's call. Stay safe, and I hope to hear from some of you soon. Bye.
Bye.